Welcome back to Bill and Craig Estate. Now, first of all, I must apologise. Normally when I try and put a video out, I make sure I'm caught up with my own video watching first before I release one. But I know that right now, as I speak, I've got 2 Fury Machine Gaming videos and 1 AK video that I haven't yet had a chance to watch. And I apologise that I'm releasing a video when I'm not up to date with my own video watching, but I know that at the moment they seem to be coming out faster than I can watch them. So if I don't put out a video before I'm caught up, then it could be another week or so before I release a video, because they seem to be coming out so quickly at the moment. And I like to try and put out at least 1 video a week, even though I'm not on a schedule and I don't have any promises as to when the next one will be. I like to try and put one out at least once a week, sort of thing. Well, not just at least once a week, but probably at most once a week generally as well. I like to put out 1 video a week if I can. So I thought today, even though I have not caught up yet on my own video watching, that I would release one anyway. And I do have an interesting story to tell you, so I will share that interesting story today. Now, this story is in relation to my wife and I coming home from Wanganui a couple of weekends ago, and it was a Sunday night and it was dark and we were heading home. Now, as anyone that's watched any of my videos before will know, my wife and I have a lovely pair of redhead twins, and by that I mean that we own a pair of matching Mazda MX-5s, or if you're American, Mazda Miatas. So we refer to them as our twins. We have a lovely pair of redhead twins. So we were coming home from Wanganui, and we've been up in Wanganui for the weekend for my brother's 60th birthday. And we were heading home, and it was after dark on a Sunday night, and we'd just turned from Sanson heading towards Foxton. Now, in New Zealand, the road between Sanson and Foxton, actually I can drive up the gate first there, is called the Foxton Flats. Now the Foxton Flats, and I looked this up especially for this video, is 31.4 kilometres long. So that's about 20 miles, give or take. Okay, and it's basically a straight road, so it's not quite straight, but the curves that are in that road are very, very gentle and can be taken at full speed. You don't need to slow down for any of them. They're all very, very gentle curves. So it's basically a long straight road that's 20 miles or 31 kilometres long, and it is still only 2 lanes, 1 in each direction. And because it's a long straight piece of road, and I don't know, in America there's probably lots of straight bits of road that are 20 miles long without a curve in them. In New Zealand, we're a lot smaller country than America. It's very, very rare. There's not very many places in New Zealand where you get a 20 mile or 31 kilometre stretch of road that's all pretty well straight. It's very rare. So as a result, there's always cops on the Foxton Flats, always. You're going to see 2 or 3 cops at least every time you go down there. So you daren't break the speed limit, because if you do, you will get ticketed. It's not a if, but, or maybe, it's a you will. So you have to stick to the speed limit. However, because it's a piece of open road, the speed limit along the Foxton Flats is 100 kilometres an hour. Now that's 62 miles an hour. Okay, now just as we were turning onto the Foxton Flats, and it takes like 22 minutes to drive the length of the Foxton Flats at the speed limit. Okay, just as we turned onto it, it started to rain. And when I say it started to rain, I don't mean that there were a few drops here or there, but it went from no rain to absolutely pouring down. An absolute rainstorm. It really was the hardest rain I've seen in a long time, in a matter of like 10 seconds or so. Now, my wife and I both had our roofs down on our sports cars, but a friend of mine had told me that as long as you're doing at least 70 kilometres an hour on one of these, you won't get wet even if it's raining, because what happens is the draft coming over the bonnet and over the windscreen is actually enough to push the rain back behind you. So instead of rain landing on the interior of the car and on you, it actually lands on the boot lid behind you. And I'd never actually tried this for myself, and I thought that scientific, the theory was probably about right. It sounded like it might work that way, but would 70 kilometres an hour actually be fast enough to stop you from getting wet? But my wife and I had only just turned onto the Fox and Flats in our cars, so we just decided to chance it and let's give it a try. So we just both floored it up to 100 kilometres an hour. Now my wife was ahead of me, and first of all, and amazingly enough, my friend was absolutely correct about this. So, well, certainly at 100 kilometres an hour, we didn't get wet in the slightest. All the rain was landing behind us. We had our side windows up, but the roofs were down. And it was quite an incredible feeling, really. Here we are racing down this road in the middle of a huge rainstorm with our roofs folded down, and we weren't getting wet in the slightest. In fact, driving my car, I was behind my wife at this stage, and the only reason I knew it was raining, there was two reasons I knew it was raining. One, I had my wipers on full speed, so that's how hard it was raining, that I had to have the wipers on absolutely full speed in order to be able to see out of the windscreen. And two, I could see these two huge rooster tails coming up from her back tyres and spraying back towards me. And at one point, we even had a big 18-wheeler truck go past us in the opposite direction, and it sprayed water up off its tyres that was sitting on the road, and it hit my side window like someone had thrown a water balloon at me or something. It was just a big, loud kind of explosion, and this huge, massive splash of water on my side window. But again, I didn't get wet because it all landed on the glass window. So it was a really, really incredible feeling. Now, what was so amusing about this, apart from the fact that, I worked out that yes, indeed, we could actually drive with the roofs down even in a rainstorm as long as you were maintaining 70 kilometres an hour or above, and we were doing about 100 or just on 100 because we didn't want to be doing any speeding tickets or anything. But during this course of the Fox and Flats, we passed a number of cars, and we had a number of other cars pass us, and the people that saw us, either as we passed them or as they passed us, must have thought that we were a right pair of plonkers. Here we are in the middle of a rainstorm, and the rain's just absolutely pouring down, and here's the two of us driving along in our convertible cars with the roofs down, because they obviously wouldn't have known that we weren't getting wet in the slightest because of the speed we were doing, the speed we were able to maintain. It was absolutely incredible. So yeah, that's a story that I thought I'd share with you today, and it reminds me of another story. So see, that story, the reason I want to share that one is I thought that it sounded scientifically plausible that you wouldn't get wet, even though it was raining, just as long as you... What's happened there? Try and get past my tractor here to... I might have to just tab into... There we go, tabbing into the other tractor does the trick. I thought it sounded plausible that you wouldn't get wet because of the draft coming over the windscreen, washing the rain back over the boot lid instead of over you. But I didn't actually know for certain whether it was true or not, and certainly I didn't know if it was true that you'd be able to do it at a speed that could easily be maintained. I mean, obviously, if you could do it, travel at 300 or 400 kilometres an hour, it would definitely be true. But at a more realistic speed, I didn't know whether it would actually be true or not. And it turns out that yes, indeed, it definitely was. And it reminds me of another story I'm going to tell you about something I do at work quite often. So at work, we use Teams all the time, Microsoft Teams. And I imagine a lot of you are familiar with Microsoft Teams. Now, one of the things that you probably all know as being true through your jobs and all that is that if you want to print something off from your computer, it always costs more to print in colour than it does to print in black and white. And it costs more for the colour ink and all that. So that's logical and makes sense. And as a result, we're always encouraged at work, if you do need to print something off, well, first of all, we're encouraged not to print things unless you have to, save a tree and all that stuff, they always say. So don't print unless you have to. But if you do need to print something off, then print in black and white if at all it's possible. So since we use Teams on Microsoft Teams at work, what I have done is I've changed my picture so that when I turn on my camera on Teams, my picture appears in black and white. And a number of people that I've had meetings with over Microsoft Teams, they say to me, why is your picture in black and white? And I say to them, oh, I'm saving electricities for the department. I'm saving the business money by using less electricities. And personally, I like that word. It's funny because Word doesn't like that word, and when you spell it, it underlines it in red and suggests, do you mean this instead or that instead? No, I definitely mean electricities. To me, I know electricities isn't a term of measure, but I think it should be. So I treat it as if it is, even though in reality it's not. So I'm saving the department electricities. And I say, what do you mean you're saving electricities? I say, well, obviously it costs more to hold a team meeting in colour than it does to hold one in black and white. So by making my picture black and white, I'm actually using less electricities because it uses less power to actually send that picture across to you. Now, I don't know whether that's actually true or not. I suspect that even if it was, it would be an exceedingly small amount of electricity that it would save. But when you think about the scientific principle of it, if you're having to send a picture over the internet to someone else, a video sort of thing, so that you can see them as you're talking to them, then if it's only got to send that in black and white, then it's kind of logical that possibly it would actually use a bit less electricity to send it in black and white than what it would in colour. So as I said, I don't know whether that's true or not, and I'm not a scientist, so I'm not in a position to say, oh yes, it would definitely work that way or it definitely would not. But to me it sounds, at the very least, semi-logical. I can't unwrap that bottom barrel, by the way, because I forgot to unwrap it before I picked it up with my forks. And once it's on the forks, you can't unwrap it. But I could back up the tractor and take it off the forks to unwrap it, but I know that the bottom barrel's all going to be swallowed up in this TMR mixture. The top one won't all be swallowed up, which is why I stopped to unwrap the top one, but didn't bother with the bottom one that time. So yeah, whenever my work colleagues say, why is your picture in black and white? I always say, well, it's to save the department money because I'm using fewer electricities by having a black and white picture there. And now, even if, I don't know if any of you are scientists or not, but even if you are, and you manage to convince me that it would use exactly the same amount of electricity to have a Teams meeting in colour as it does to have one in black and white, it potentially would still save money for the company, simply because, I mean, if for some reason, I can't imagine why anyone would want to, but if there was some reason that someone wanted to print out a picture of, a screen dump picture of us during our meetings, then certainly me being in black and white would make it cheaper to print out that picture than it would if I was in colour. But I can't imagine why anyone would want to print out a picture of me having a Teams meeting with someone. But it is quite interesting watching people, especially some of the more gullible people, kind of, so it actually uses at least electricity if you're in black and white. I say, no, it uses fewer electricities. Get it right, sort of thing. So, yeah, that's an amusing little story, of a bit of fun I have at work, saving electricities for the department by having my Teams picture in black and white instead of in colour. So, and I mean, that reminds me, in fact, of an episode of Top Gear, and this is the UK Top Gear, not the American Top Gear, where Jeremy Clarkson had worked it out, apparently, because obviously, now we all know that a heavily laden car, so if you've got a car with a boot full of something heavy, it's going to cost more to run it than a car with an empty boot. So the heavier your car is, all other things remaining equal, the more petrol it's going to use to run it. Now, Jeremy Clarkson, who is a person who is very, very much against facial hair on a male, he thinks that men should never have facial hair, which is probably the exact opposite of what Matt Walsh thinks. I know Matt Walsh, an American guy that does YouTube videos and things, believes that every man should have a beard, well, Jeremy Clarkson believes that every man should be clean shaven, and he, to this extent, he once did a calculation to work out exactly how much extra petrol a car would use if the man driving it had a moustache. Okay? Now the way that was worked out was by finding someone who had a moustache who was happy to shave it off, get them to shave their moustache off, then put all the hairs that were formerly their moustache on a set of scales and weighing how much a moustache weighs, and then extrapolating out from that how much extra petrol it would cost to carry that much weight. And he worked it out. It was going to cost something like an extra 5p over a period of 7 years or something by carrying the extra weight of having a moustache. So therefore, if you have a moustache, you're spending 5p or 5 cents every 7 years extra in petrol than what you could save that much petrol simply by not having a moustache. So there's a good reason not to have a moustache, I suppose. And I must admit, I am reasonably clean shaven most of the time. Sometimes I go, a number of days without shaving, but by the time I've got a real 5 o'clock shadow going on, I shave it off, because my wife doesn't like me with facial hair. She finds that if I go to kiss her, I've got facial hair, it tickles rather a lot, so she prefers me not to have facial hair, and therefore I choose not to have it. But the reason I use for not having it is that I'm saving myself 5 cents in petrol every 7 years by not having a moustache. So that's a really good big saving. So there you go, that's probably all the stories I really wanted to share with you today. And it looks like the video's been going for about 15 minutes now, because I'm playing at 1x speed and I started at 7:29, so it's actually about 17 minutes. So I shall let you all go now. Thank you very much. Bye.